Okay, exercise 4 here, you'll want to go to your folder and open up the file warisover.ai. And once we have this up in Illustrator, you can see it's inside a template here. So we're going to hide the info template layer, and we're going to be working on this art layer here. So this is already set in vector, and we want to add a distress to this and then create an underbase that has a choked back distress. The first thing that I'm going to do is actually, let's go ahead and ungroup this. And we're going to select and put this into spot channels. And you see this is the swatch palette here of the Gen series from Texsource. I'm going to go ahead and pick Reflex Blue for the war. And then this bottom part, we're going to go ahead and pick this lemon yellow here. Now, let's say, for example, that you're not going to print this with lemon yellow, but rather 1235, which is athletic gold. With this selected, if we go ahead and click on New Swatch, we can go ahead and name this 1235 athletic gold, and then we can make this the color that's more true to our eye, what's going to be on the press. This gold is usually 100% yellow, and then you've got some magenta in there, making it this really nice rich color in gold. Now this is going to be a spot color, and you've just added something to your list of spot colors on this template. That looks good right there, and let's go ahead and we're going to select everything. We're going to make this underbase, and we're going to do a Control-C for copy. I created a new layer. I'm locking this layer, and I'm going to hit the click to target this new layer that we made. I'm actually going to go ahead and name it the underbase layer, and then I'm going to do a Command F, which means paste in front. So we have an identical copy on both here. Now this is where if you come up here, you see that we have a spot white that looks like this green color, and then we have an underlay that's shaded in this purple color, merely so you can see it. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to select underbase, because that's what this is. Okay, and with all of this selected, now it really doesn't matter which color you used at this point, but we're going to create a stroke on the outside here. I like going with 0.75 and make sure that the stroke is aligned to the center. If we look in real close here, you're going to see that the stroke is riding halfway on and halfway off, right? And the other thing is on the corners, I like to do the rounded corners. It's just a little cleaner. It works really well. And what I'm doing with this underbase is we're going to create a choke back along the perimeter edges before we add this distressing. So after we've done all of that, we're going to go up to Object, Path, and then we're going to outline the stroke. So at this point, make sure everything's selected. We're going to go into our Pathfinder, and we're going to do a merge. And that gets rid of all these little extra and hidden shapes. Once we do that, I'm going to go to the direct selection tool here, and I'm going to make sure that I've selected on this black color that we used as the stroke. And then we're going to select same fill color, and we're going to delete all of that. So you saw that that got a little smaller, and if we use the little eyeball here for visibility, you can see that we now have this little choke back of the white around the perimeter. The last thing that I always do after doing one of these merges is I want to make sure there's no extra stuff that's left over, because that happens in Illustrator sometimes. So I've cleared out the fill and the stroke, and I'm going to go to select same fill color. And you see there's these little pieces of uncolored stuff. They're usually on the inside of shapes like this. And we're going to delete that. it's not necessary. And if you select all on this layer, you should only see purple here. Before I did that, it wouldn't know what to tell you because there's multiple colors selected, usually an indicator that you have some junk in there. This also made a group out of all of this when you merge. Okay, so now that we have our underbase made, I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to go back to this is set to spot colors here. In fact, your underbase is set to spot colors. This is ready to go if you're not using a distress. But this exercise, we're going to not only show you how to put a distress on, but how to choke back a distress. So under File, on this layer, we're going to go to Place. And we're going to go back to the exercise files. We're going to go to number 4 and to the assets, this distressed fine print TIFF here. And we're going to click Place, just click right over the image here. And you see that it's a little small for what we've got going on here. Yeah, that's not going to work here. So I'm literally going to scale this up a little bit. Typically don't like to scale these too much, but I just want to scale it enough to cover the whole design here. Okay, that looks good right there. Now, because this is a bitmap TIFF, that means you could actually color this thing anything you wanted. Sometimes you'll use that if you're trying to mock this up on a shirt that is this color. But that's something we'll look at later on the mock-ups. But as this stands right here and now, we need to attach this TIFF to this file to get it to knock it out properly. And let me go to the transparency menu. And if I make a mask, you see nothing is happening here, right? So let me make sure that this is all grouped again. And by the way, I just cut that, and then I'm going to paste it right back on top. And I'm going to select everything, and then make a mask, and then remove clip. Okay, so, and let's do that again. The bottom has to be grouped. This is sitting on top, and then we select everything, and we make a mask, and then remove the clip on here. And so now you see that this TIFF is just knocking out. It was black at one time, but it understands what you're trying to do here. Now, if we were to use the same TIFF on the artwork above here, then all of the distress part would be but register. And so that's something we don't want to do. We want to have a little bit of choke in there, just like we do with the perimeter edge that we made earlier here, right? So with that in mind, we're going to flip over to Photoshop, and you can open this folder that's in your assets file, the distress fine TIFF here. And we're going to modify this and make a second TIFF. Now this is set to bitmap mode, and that's very limiting to being able to do selections and fills and whatnot. So we immediately need to change this back over to grayscale and just leave the size ratio as it is. And now we're going to come in here and look at the actual pixels that make this TIFF. Now there's several ways of selecting this black that we're going to modify, but color range works really well in this because I can select this, and you can see this fuzziness here. This will allow me to select all of this black. We want to see how well it does. You see I kind of selected in the middle here, and I have a really clean selection of just the black pixels. Now we go back to the select, and we're going to modify by expanding this selection by 1 pixel. So you see it just open this up a little bit. And next we want to go ahead and fill this selection with this color here. So to make sure that happens correctly, I'm going to click the eyedropper here, which will place the color here. And then we're going to go under the edit, fill, and then we're going to select the foreground color, which is this right here. Okay, so now to get this back to where we need it, we have to go back under image mode and go back to bitmap. This is where we're going to do a 50% threshold. And what that means is it's going to try to determine what's going to be black, what's going to be white. This is very apparent in this file, whereas if you had some grayscale values and tones, it would just simply clip some off at a point. So this is going to be good. It's going to be very accurate. In fact, you didn't see this change at all. So we're back in bitmap mode. And so you can see this is beefed up. So we're going to go ahead and save this, but not as distress fine print. We're going to add on UB for Underbase. And we're going to save that. Just save it how Photoshop is asking you to save it. Now back over here in Illustrator, I'm really going to have to remember how I did the other TIFF file, right? That's going to be important. In fact, let's back up here a little bit. I'm going to go back to this file here, and I'm going to go ahead and release this. The reason why I'm going to do this is I want to make sure that both these TIFFs line up perfectly to the artboard. So I'm going to hit the align on here. And don't worry, we'll move this back up where it needs to be. But it's very important that these two TIFFs line up. So jump back up here to the Underbase layer. We're going to place that new TIFF that we made right into this file. Actually, we got to click that this is going to be the target layer here. And now place is opened up here. And there's the new Underbase. And we're going to just place this and just click once. Now remember, we scaled this up. And this is going to be very important, how we scale this, just like we did the other one. So I'm going to make this other TIFF visible here, but I'm going to lock the layer. And then I'm going to go up and scale again. See, it remembers the 120. That's a good thing, right? So now both are scaled. And if we start removing this, you can see in the TIFF area, we've got the beefed up one, right? So now will be the best way of getting these TIFF files put on top of your art is having both layers available, not locked, visible. And I'm going to select by dragging around both of these TIFFs, and then they'll move at the same time. This is where, like, if you have extra room, you can kind of say, like, yeah, I like it here or there. You really decide where you want that TIFF to land. Sometimes when you have tiny little text, you have to move it where some of this heavier stuff's not knocking it completely out. So I've got it where I want it. I'm going to hide the upper one, and then I'm going to select all. And we're going to go back in the transparency menu and do the mask and remove the clip again, right? Now we can go to the upper one and do the same thing. Select all, make mask, remove the clip. But here's going to be the next thing you'll have to do. And that is in the attributes menu. We want to set this to overprint here so that if we don't, it will knock out everything below it when we go to do our separations. And to prove that, let's go ahead and go to the separations preview, one of my favorite menus. If we turn that on and make all of our stuff visible, you can literally see how these colors have shifted because this underlay is sitting on top of it, right? So if I hide and show the underlay, this is looking pretty good. But the proof is going to be down here in the actual file where I should see the gold held back here. If we get really close, you can see that where the TIFF is sitting on top here, if I hide the underlay, that underlay is now choked back. Now, to be honest with you, I haven't seen too many people use this technique. I'm not saying that I invented it, but I'm the only one that I've ever seen using this. But on the press, if you don't use something like this, then you're certainly going to peek out white if you have to underbase this file. So this file at this point is actually ready to move your registration marks in, add your colors, do a mock-up over here, but essentially this thing is good to go. And if we turn on our overprint preview and we hide our all of our colors, we can bring them in one at a time. We're going to print the underbase, then we'll probably print the gold, flash that, and then we'll print the blue.